Hello, everyone. Welcome back to ABC Learning English. I am your host, Adam.
And I am Eva. We are so happy to be here with you today. If you are learning English, this is the perfect podcast for you to practice listening.
That's right. Today, we have a very big and interesting topic. Before we started recording today, our producer, Juana, asked us a question. He asked, "Does money buy happiness?"
It is a question that keeps us awake at night. Does money really make us happy? Your parents, your teachers, and every pop song on the radio usually tell you the same thing. They say, "No, it does not."
Many people say money is the root of all evil. They mean money causes bad things, or at least they say money is not the road to joy.
But Adam, you have some new information for our students today, right?
Yes, I do. I am here to tell you that the old stories might be wrong. When we look at real numbers and the newest science from the last 3 years, the answer is very, very different. Money does buy happiness.
Wait, Adam, that sounds too simple. I am worried about that idea. If you think a bigger bank account automatically gives you a bigger smile, you will be running forever.
What do you mean, Eva?
I mean, money is useful, of course, but after a short time, it stops making you happy. For many people, working too hard to get more money actually makes their lives worse. They feel more stress.
I understand your point, but we need to look at the real numbers first. For the last 10 years, everyone talked about one specific number, $75,000 a year.
Ah, yes. The famous study from 2010.
Exactly. Two very smart scientists, Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, looked at the data. They said that your emotional well-being, how good and happy you feel every day, stops growing when you make $75,000 a year.
It was a very comfortable number. It told people, hey, if you make enough money to pay your bills and buy food, don't worry about getting very rich. It won't make you happier.
But here is the problem, Eva. That old study was wrong. Or we understood it completely wrong.
Wrong? But it was a very famous study by a scientist who won a big prize.
It was limited by the tools they had. Now, let's fast forward to the year 2021. A new scientist named Matthew Killingsworth used a much better tool. He did not ask people to remember how they felt last week. He used a phone app.
A phone app? How did that work?
The app was called Track Your Happiness. It sent a message to people on their phones during the day. It asked, "How do you feel right now?" He collected millions of answers. And do you know what he found?
What did he find?
He found no stop. There was no plateau.
The line just kept going up?
Yes, the more money people made, the happier they were. People making over $75,000 and even over $200,000 just kept getting happier.
But Adam, for our students listening, we must be careful with these statistics. You are talking about a log-linear relationship. We need to explain what that big word means in simple English.
That is a great idea. A log-linear relationship means percentage growth. It means every dollar does not buy the same amount of joy.
Let me give an example. Think of it like this. If you only make $25,000 a year and your boss gives you $5,000 more, that is life-changing. It is a massive amount of money for you. You feel very, very happy.
Exactly. But if you are rich and you make $250,000 a year, getting $5,000 more is very small. You almost do not notice it.
Right. To get that same big, happy feeling when you make $250,000, you need to double your money. You need to make $500,000.
Which proves my point. The happiness is still there. You just need more money to feel it.
But Adam, that proves my point. You have to run twice as fast just to feel the same amount of happiness. The cost of happiness becomes much more expensive the richer you get.
But the improvement is there. That is the key difference. The old 2010 study said happiness stopped completely. The new data in 2023 showed that for most people, happiness never stops growing. Money gives you control. And for the happiest 30% of people, the benefits of money actually get faster and bigger after $100,000.
You are talking about the happiest 30%, but you are ignoring a very big problem. You are ignoring the unhappy minority.
I am not ignoring them, but they are the exception. They are only 20% of the population.
20% is not small, Adam. That is 1 in 5 people. The data clearly showed that for the least happy 20% of people, happiness does stop. It hits a hard ceiling at $100,000.
Why is that?
If you are in this very sad group, you can make $1 million a year, but you will not be happier. Why? Because their sadness is not about money.
Ah, I see. We are talking about people dealing with deep sadness.
Yes, maybe they have clinical depression, which means a serious medical sadness. Maybe they lost a child. Maybe they had a terrible divorce or a broken heart.
And money cannot fix those things.
Exactly. Money cannot buy your way out of deep emotional damage. If you are very miserable, being rich just makes you a miserable person driving a very expensive car. Even if you drive a beautiful, new Mazda CX-30, if your heart is broken, you are still sad inside the car.
I accept that. If you are grieving or deeply depressed, money has limits. It cannot fix a broken heart. However, for the other 80% of people, which is most of the people listening to us right now, the rule is true. More money equals more happiness.
Can you explain why the old 2010 study got it so wrong then?
Yes, because in 2010, the scientist was not measuring happiness. He was measuring not being miserable.
That sounds confusing. Can you give our students an example?
Sure. Imagine a very easy math test. If you give it to a healthy 25-year-old student, they get a perfect score. If you give it to a healthy 40-year-old, they also get a perfect score.
Because the test is too easy.
Right. The test hits a ceiling. It looks like intelligence stops growing at age 25. But really, the test just cannot measure the difference between a normal person and a genius.
So the 2010 study was an easy test?
Yes, It was a misery test. Once you make $75,000, you have food, you have a good house, you are not miserable anymore. So, the line went flat. But the new app measured positive joy. When you measure actual joy, money keeps working.
Okay, it keeps working, but let's talk about how much it works. In that 2023 study, do you know how much the happiness score actually moved when people doubled their income?
It was statistically significant. That means it was real.
It was real, but it was not big. On a 100-point scale, if you double your income from $100,000 to $200,000, your happiness only goes up by 2 points.
2 points is still something.
2 points. The researchers said that making 4 times more money gives you the same amount of happiness as a headache going away.
I disagree with you, Eva. I don't think we should ignore small gains.
But think about the effort. Think about how hard you have to work to make 4 times more money. You need years of school. You have to work 80 hours a week. You miss your children's birthdays. You have so much stress.
People work hard, yes.
You are doing all of that hard work to get a tiny bit of happiness. The data shows you would be happier if you just worked less and had a 3-day weekend.
That is a clever thing to say, Eva. But life does not work like that. A headache is short. A weekend is only 2 days. But your income is with you every single day. A small 2-point advantage every hour of every day for 40 years is massive.
What do you mean?
It is the difference between a life full of small problems and a life of smooth sailing. The value of money is not about buying things. It is about removing stress.
Removing stress?
Yes, it is the ability to say, "Oh, my car is broken." Instead of crying and panicking about how to get to work, you just call a taxi and pay to fix the car. It is living in a safe neighborhood where you can walk at night. Money is a shield that protects you from daily problems.
But that shield gets very heavy, Adam. This brings us to a big problem called the hedonic treadmill, or, in simple English, the happiness trap.
The happiness trap? We adapt to things, right?
Yes, we are adaptation machines. It is a little tragic. You get a big new job. You move into a much bigger house with an extra bedroom. For 3 months, it feels amazing. You think, wow, I am so successful.
And then what happens?
By month 6, it is just your normal kitchen. It is just your normal house. Your brain gets used to it. Your expectations reset. So now, to get that same happy feeling, you need an even bigger house.
People always want more.
Yes. A study from Purdue University showed this clearly. When you make too much money, you actually become less satisfied with your life.
Less satisfied? Why?
Because once you have everything you need, you start comparing yourself to others. You stop comparing yourself to normal people. You start comparing yourself to super rich people. It is a race you can never win.
I agree the happiness trap is real, but I think it is only a trap for people who do not know how to spend their money.
What is the right way to spend money?
The research says, if money isn't making you happy, you are spending it wrong. First, You should buy experiences, not things.
I have heard that before.
Because it is true. Buying stuff like big TVs, new phones, or expensive jewelry gets boring quickly. You adapt to them. But experiences like traveling, going to a concert, or learning a new skill are different. You remember them forever.
I agree with that. Memories are better than objects.
But even more important than buying experiences is buying time.
Buying time? How do you buy time?
You pay other people to do the things you hate doing. You hire a person to clean your house. You use a laundry service. You pay a teenager to cut the grass in your garden. The data shows that buying back your free time makes you very, very happy.
Okay, but stop and look at the joke there, Adam. In the modern world, how do people get the money to buy time?
Yeah, Pod, they work.
Yes, they sell their time. You have rich professionals, lawyers, bank managers, tech bosses working 70 or 80 hours a week. They are selling the best years of their lives to make money, and then they use that money to hire a cleaner to save them 2 hours on a Saturday. It is silly.
That is an extreme example, Eva.
Is it? High incomes often mean heavier workloads. You are arguing that money buys freedom, but for many rich people, chasing money costs them their freedom. They wear golden handcuffs.
Golden handcuffs? What does that mean for our students?
It means you are trapped by your rich lifestyle. You hate your job, but you cannot quit because you need to pay for the big house, the cleaner, and the expensive private school for your kids.
I think you are painting a very sad picture of rich people. But the data shows happiness goes up for top earners. They have the resources. And let's talk about the best way to break the happiness trap.
What is that?
Generosity. Giving your money away.
Giving money to others? Yes, pro-social spending.
Exactly. For our learners, pro-social means doing things that help society and other people. Experiments show that if I give you $20 and tell you to buy something for yourself, you feel happy for a short time. By the afternoon, the feeling is gone.
And if I spend it on someone else?
If I tell you to buy a friend lunch or give the money to a charity, your happiness is much higher, and it lasts a long time. Money allows you to be generous. It gives you a feeling of purpose.
I absolutely agree that generosity is the best way to use money. But Adam, doesn't that prove my point?
What point?
It proves that the money itself is not the source of the happiness. The connection to other people is the source of happiness.
Tell me more about that.
This brings me to the Harvard study of adult development. It is the longest study on happiness in history. They tracked people for 75 years.
And what was their conclusion?
Their answer was not about money. It was not about your job. The single clearest message from 75 years of data was this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Period.
Relationships are the most important.
Yes. If you have a mountain of cash, but your husband or wife is angry with you and your kids don't talk to you because you are always at the office, you lose.
I am not going to argue against love and friendship, Eva. Obviously, relationships are the most important thing in life. But I will challenge the idea that money and relationships are enemies.
How can money help relationships?
Actually, not having enough money is the biggest danger to relationships. What is the number one cause of divorce in the world? Money problems. What causes massive stress between brothers and sisters? Paying to take care of sick parents?
That is true. Financial stress is very hard.
Money buys you the ability to take care of your relationships. It buys the plane ticket to fly home and see your parents. It allows you to invite friends over for a nice dinner. It allows you to help a friend in trouble.
It can help, yes, but it often causes problems because of social comparison. We are human beings. We care about status.
Keeping up with the Joneses. That is an English idiom that means trying to have the same nice things as your neighbors.
Exactly. If I make $100,000 and everyone else in my town makes $50,000, I feel like a king. But if I move to a new town where everyone makes $1 million, suddenly I feel very poor.
And social media makes this so much worse today.
Yes, you aren't just comparing yourself to your neighbor anymore. You look at Instagram and you compare your life to a billionaire on a yacht. You can never win that game. There is always someone richer.
That is a very fair point, Eva. If you play the status game, you will always be sad. But I want to zoom out for a second. We have been focusing very much on rich Western countries.
That is true. Complaining that my big car doesn't make me happy is a very first world problem.
Exactly. When we look at global data, the picture is very clear. In poor countries, or for people living in poverty, the relationship between money and happiness is incredibly strong.
Because money buys survival.
Yes, it buys the ability to feed your hungry children. It puts a safe roof over your head. It buys medicine when you are sick. We cannot forget that money literally saves lives for billions of people on Earth.
I concede that entirely, Adam. If you are struggling to survive, money is happiness, because money is life. But a study showed something fascinating about different cultures, even when people have enough money to survive.
What did they find?
They found that the satiation point, the exact amount of money where happiness stops growing, is very different depending on your culture.
Where is it lowest?
In places like Southeast Asia, for example, here in Vietnam, and also in Latin America. It is much higher in North America and Northern Europe.
Why is it lower here in Southeast Asia?
Because of culture. We have cultural ideas like knowing enough or being content. In individualistic Western cultures, people think success means collecting more and more things for yourself.
And in collectivist cultures,
Success means having harmony in your community and a peaceful family. So, people in these cultures achieve happiness more efficiently. They get the same amount of happy feelings, but they don't need as much money to get it.
that is a beautiful philosophy. But I would argue that in our modern connected world, everyone wants autonomy. Everyone wants choices. They want a safety net. And that is what money is. It gives you options.
But having too many options can be paralyzing. It can make you freeze.
Now you are just being philosophical, Eva.
Laughs? Maybe a little bit.
Look, we have covered a massive amount of information today for our students. Let's try to summarize this for the listener who is looking at their bank account right now.
Good idea. What is your final thought, Adam?
From my perspective, we need to stop telling people that money does not matter. It matters. For 80% of the population, it buys freedom. It deletes problems. And if you use your money to be generous to others and buy free time, it will give you a very good life.
And my final thought is this. Money raises the floor, but it does not guarantee the ceiling. It can stop you from being poor, but it cannot make you perfectly happy.
Very well said.
If you chase a big number in your bank account, but you ignore your family and friends, you will end up rich and completely empty. You need enough money to buy your freedom, but do not sell your life and your freedom just to get the money.
That is exactly the perfect balance. We aren't going to declare a clear winner today. We want all of our students to look at your own lives.
Ask yourself, are you buying time or are you selling it? Are you spending money on beautiful memories or just buying things to look cool?
And most importantly, do you know what enough looks like for you? Because if you don't decide what is enough, the world will always tell you to want more.
Thank you so much for joining us for this debate on ABC Learning English.
Practice listening to this podcast a few times to learn all the new vocabulary. Go check your bank accounts, call a good friend, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.